What do you make of Pat's Pro Bowler Hightower opting out for the upcoming season?
If it wasn't for the existence of Bill Belichick, if he hasn't proven himself as a combination GM coach, the best who ever did it by a factor of something, we would have written the Patriots off a long time ago. But I'm sitting here, and of course, presuming they have a season and they finish, which I don't think will happen. But let's talk about this with that assumption for a second. What are you kidding? You lose Tom Brady. You didn't have a lot of offensive weapons to begin with. The Buffalo Bills are on the rise. No one will be entertaining, even getting Cam in there. Coming off an injury, hasn't looked good in a couple of years as a result of that. Has to learn a new system, have to put weapons around him, the whole thing. You'd be like, nah, come on, it's the Bills. The Bills were nipping at their heels last year as is, and they're on the rise, and the Patriots were in decline. And then you lose a piece off your defense like this? But because it's Bill Belichick, I'm still sitting here. If you make me pick who I think would win the NFC East if they play, I think the Patriots. Because I've seen Belichick lose too many name brand players. Not just like name brand players we see in the NFL, they're name brands, but in name only. They don't really do it anymore. We've seen him, we've seen prime time players in the primes of their careers plucked off that defense. And the next year, it's like they haven't missed a step. They change a little bit, but they haven't missed a step. So if any team could kind of suffer the impact of losing a player like Hightower, it would be the Patriots and Bill Belichick. I would still make them favorites by a touch.
Louis?
Yeah, I think this is a major blow. This is a major blow for New England on the football field and off the football field. Look, on the football field, Donta Hightowers is one of those multi-positional type of players that Bill specifically targets in the draft and free agency. Guys who can adjust on the fly within a game, switch positions from being a down lineman to being a stand-up box linebacker, to being a guy who can cover running backs, guys who can cover tight ends, guys who can blitz, guys who are strong against the run, proficient against the pass. I mean, these are the kind of players that Bill has made his name off of for over 20 years in New England. And on top of that, Donta is a signal caller. Donta is a guy who's in the middle of the field, a guy who is a communicator. When you lose too many of those people, like Donta, and like obviously on the offensive side of the ball, you lose a Tom Brady, it's going to have an effect on your football team that you can't really measure, that you can't really put your finger on and touch, because you have to be there to experience it and understand just how important these guys are to executing on the field, and executing on the field in particular in a scheme that changes from week to week to week in a Bill Belichick coach type of football team. Like, you have to have a certain football intellect and a certain football intelligence level in order to play for this man in the first place. Now, when you have a guy who is a veteran like Donta and you take him away on the defensive side of the ball, and you're faced with the kind of circumstances that we're all facing right now with this pandemic, and in football in particular, where you haven't been together at all on a football field at all since last year, it's going to have a tangible effect. There's no question about it. And then move over to the offensive side. I don't care if Cam Newton's there or not. He's never been with this football team yet. Jarrett Stidham hasn't established himself as a leader. So there's so many unknowns for this football team that I don't know if Bill can overcome all those things. I don't know if Josh McDaniels can overcome all those things. There's a lot up in the air with this football team now, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more up in the air as we move through, because I'm sure we haven't heard the last of these players that are opting out, although I don't have any insight as to more players opting out. But I'm sure we haven't heard the last of it, because there's going to be positive tests. That's going to affect the roster even more. And this is really, I mean, it's the first shoe to drop, which I'm sure, in what I'm sure is going to be a number of shoes that are going to drop.
I even thought before this happened, guys, that the Buffalo Bills were going to win the AFC East because that Tom Brady guy is no longer being there. And he was so terrific at overcoming so many different defections and mistakes on any side of the ball when it came to the Patriots. You always had number 12 to have your back, to have your 6, your Bill Belichick. But now you have not one but 5 guys opting out because of 2020. If this was not 2020, I would say, you know what, I completely trust that Bill Belichick's going to find a way. But, Louis, to your point, they haven't had any practice time. It's kind of hard to generate an NFL practice or a football game on Zoom. Zoom is terrific, but not that terrific where you can really be able to do that and make your team and have your team ready for a season with training camps starting today. And they don't have Tom Brady to overcome those kind of mistakes. And I believe that he's going to make Cam Newton a better player. There still is doubt that he's going to be the starting quarterback. And now you have a Donta Hightowers, the quarterback of your defense, that's not going to be there. Bill Belichick has always been what I call he can take his and beat yours, and then he can take yours and beat his. but it's really hard to do that without key components of your football team to make that work. You lose a Tom Brady here, a Rob Gronkowski before that, now Donta Hightowers and other people. Bill Belichick is a mad scientist as a genius, but if you don't have players, you can have the best game plan in the world. If you don't have the players that make that work, there's only so much you can do. As far as I'm concerned, Max and Lewis, this is another step that I believe the Buffalo Bills are going to win the AFC East. You can be a talented coach, but you got to have those dudes. You got to have those bros that can make that work. And right now, for the first time in a long time, Max, Bill Belichick does not have those bros that can help him make this work with New England.
I mean, let's not forget, when last seen healthy, Cam Newton was maybe the best version of himself ever, and you know that includes when he was voted by his peers the best player in football in the middle of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers' prime. His numbers were better when last seen healthy, right? Like, he was a little more accurate, a little more conservative, still very physical, the whole thing. So if Cam Newton is most of what he was when last seen healthy, that's a big piece. Also, the Patriots had an elite defense last year, so maybe they can afford a blow or two. You also have to take into consideration how many other teams will lose players to either opting out or injury at some point in that season. That stuff may even out. And though he did miss the playoffs with Matt Castle, they won 11 games, 10 of them with Matt Castle that year. Belichick really is a miracle worker because he takes it 1 week at a time, 1 game at a time, and he adapts to whatever's in front of him, right? I will say this. When he traded guys like Chandler Jones or Jamie Collins, he got stuff back. Here you're losing a guy like that at his best, and Lewis, you brought up sort of like a positional football concept, a guy who really fits that mold with a high-pitched talent, and he ain't getting anything back. All you're really doing is losing. You're not getting draft pick compensation, a nice little offensive lineman who you can plug in somewhere. You're getting nothing back.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.